Hey, Eagles fans! The temperature is rising behind the scenes in Philadelphia, and there's a lot unfolding right now that every single fan needs to understand. Because what we're hearing directly from the NFL league meetings is not as simple as it looks on the surface. Howie Roseman spoke, Nick Sirianni spoke, and even though their words sounded controlled, calculated, and maybe even repetitive, if you really pay attention, there are signals here that something bigger could still be developing with this roster as we head toward the 2026 season. But before we move on, make sure you've already clicked the like button if you're an Eagles fan and believe we'll win this season. And if you can, leave a comment saying, "Go Eagles, I believe." Now, let's get straight into it, because the biggest storyline right now continues to orbit around A.J. Brown. And here's the reality. The Eagles had multiple chances, multiple clear opportunities to completely shut down all trade speculation. And they didn't do it. That's not speculation, that's fact, based on exactly what was said. Howie Roseman kept repeating one thing. A.J. Brown is a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni echoed the same idea. But what's missing? The definitive statement. The strong, no-doubt phrase, "We are not trading him." That never came. And in the NFL, what is not said can be just as important as what is said. This is where things start to get really interesting. Reports indicate that A.J. Brown had a list of preferred destinations earlier in the offseason, and every single team on that list was in the AFC: Kansas City Chiefs, New England Patriots, Los Angeles Chargers, and Buffalo Bills. That alone tells you something critical. The Eagles are not interested in strengthening a direct NFC rival. If a move happens, it's going across conferences. But look at how the market has shifted. The Bills already made a move for DJ Moore. The Chargers? No serious interest. The Chiefs? Also not in the mix right now. So what does that leave? One team staring directly at Philadelphia, the New England Patriots. And here's where the tension builds. If a deal hasn't happened yet, it's because Howie Roseman has not received an offer strong enough to justify moving one of the best wide receivers in football. That's the reality. This isn't about desire alone. It's about value. And Howie has always been disciplined when it comes to extracting maximum return. There's also a financial layer here that cannot be ignored. If the Eagles were to trade A.J. Brown, doing it after June 1st would allow them to spread out the dead money instead of absorbing a massive $43 million hit immediately. That timing matters. That's strategy. That's Howie Roseman thinking 2 steps ahead, like he always does. So when you combine all of this, the non-committal answers, the AFC-only trade preferences, the lack of a finalized deal, and the financial timing, it paints a very clear picture. The door is not closed. Not even close. It's still slightly open. Now, while that situation continues to simmer, the Eagles have been extremely active in reshaping other parts of the roster. And one move that stands out immediately is the addition of Rick Woolen. This is a player with elite physical tools, 6.4, long arms, sub 4.3 speed, and consistent production when it comes to pass breakups. This is not just a depth signing. This is a calculated bet on upside. Yes, there are concerns: penalties, consistency, discipline. Sirianni even acknowledged that while they love his tenacity and edge, those mistakes cannot continue. But this is classic Eagles philosophy under Howie Roseman. Target high-upside players, especially those with strong athletic profiles and draft pedigree, and trust your coaching staff to unlock their full potential. And Woolen fits perfectly alongside Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. From a scheme perspective, this could be a major upgrade compared to what the Eagles were working with before. Then you look at the wide receiver additions, and this is where things get even more layered when you consider the A.J. Brown situation. The Eagles brought in Marquise Hollywood Brown on a one-year deal and Elijah Moore on a veteran minimum contract. These are not random moves. These are strategic depth additions with very specific skill sets. Hollywood Brown brings speed, separation, and vertical threat ability. Elijah Moore brings versatility and familiarity, not just with the system concepts, but also a personal connection with A.J. Brown himself. And don't overlook this. Joe Douglas, who originally drafted Elijah Moore, is back in the Eagles' front office. That connection matters. Howie even explained the philosophy clearly. This team needed more depth, more variety, more flexibility in the receiver room. Different sizes, different skill sets, different ways to attack defenses. And when you hear that, you have to ask yourself, is this just about improving the roster? Or is this also about preparing for a potential shift if A.J. Brown is no longer part of the long-term picture? Because if A.J. stays, this is one of the most dangerous receiver groups in the NFL. If he goes, the Eagles still have a framework, but it changes everything about how they approach the draft and offensive identity. And that brings us to the heart of this entire situation. This is not just about one player. This is about direction. It's about timing. It's about whether the Eagles are positioning themselves for another Super Bowl push with their current core, or quietly preparing for a transition that nobody wants to fully admit yet. So now I want to hear from you, Eagles fans. Based on everything that's happening right now, do you truly believe A.J. Brown will still be on this roster when the 2026 season begins? Or is this just the calm before a major move? And this is where everything starts to connect, because when you zoom out and look at the Eagles' entire off-season approach, you can clearly see a pattern forming. This is not a team making random moves. This is a front office that is carefully positioning itself for multiple outcomes at the same time. And that's what makes this situation so fascinating. And honestly, a little tense if you're a fan trying to read between the lines. Because think about it. On one hand, you still have a roster that is absolutely capable of competing at the highest level. Jalen Hurts continues to be one of the most efficient deep ball throwers in the league, something Howie Roseman himself emphasized, pointing out how important it is to have receivers who can stretch the field and separate at the top of their routes. That directly aligns with the additions of Hollywood Brown and Elijah Moore. These are not just depth pieces. They are functional weapons that fit exactly what this offense wants to do. But on the other hand, there are still clear gaps on this roster that haven't been fully addressed yet. Edge rusher remains a concern, even after adding players like Joe Tryon, and the safety position might be the biggest question mark right now. The Eagles are currently relying heavily on Andrew Mukuba to make a significant leap from year 1 to year 2, which is a lot to ask. Even for a talented young player, Marcus Epps brings experience, no doubt, and we've seen him contribute before, especially during that Super Bowl run. But beyond those two, the depth is thin, and Howie didn't shy away from that reality. He made it clear that the Eagles are still evaluating options, whether that's through the draft or through players who might become available after the draft. There's even the possibility of adding a veteran like Justin Simmons, who is reportedly interested in returning to the league. So again, what does that tell you? This roster is still under construction. This is not the finished product. And then you add another layer to this entire situation. The quarterback room. The Eagles went out and traded for Andy Dalton, and while that might not seem like a headline-grabbing move, it actually says a lot about how this team is thinking. Dalton comes in as a veteran presence, someone who can still make quick decisions, still throw the football effectively, and most importantly, provide stability behind Jalen Hurts. And here's the key detail: the financials. The Eagles are only paying him $1.5 million. That's incredible value for a quarterback with his level of experience. It reinforces the idea that this team is being extremely calculated with how they allocate resources, making sure they maintain flexibility for bigger decisions, possibly including something involving A.J. Brown. Now, let's talk about something that could turn into a major storyline as we get closer to the season. The Eagles are set to have joint practices with the New England Patriots during training camp, and if you've been following everything we've just discussed, you already know why that matters. Imagine this scenario for a second. Training camp, Eagles versus Patriots, joint practices, and potentially A.J. Brown on the other sideline, going up against Quinyon Mitchell in live reps. That's not just football. That's drama. That's tension. That's a situation that could explode into one of the biggest stories of the entire preseason if things trend in that direction. And this is why the Eagles continue to be one of the most fascinating teams in the NFL right now, because they are balancing two timelines at once. They are trying to win now while also preparing for what comes next. They are building depth, adding versatility, and keeping their options open in a way that very few teams can manage as effectively as Howie Roseman does. But make no mistake about it, everything still circles back to that one question: A.J. Brown. Because if he stays, this offense has the potential to be explosive, dynamic, and incredibly difficult to defend. If he goes, it signals a shift. Not necessarily a rebuild, but a recalibration. A different kind of Eagles team. One that leans more on depth, scheme, and distribution rather than star power at the top. And the fact that we're still having this conversation, even after multiple public appearances from the head coach and general manager, tells you everything you need to know. This situation is alive. It's evolving. And it could change at any moment. So stay locked in, because the next few weeks, especially with the NFL draft approaching, could define the direction of this franchise in a very real way. If you've made it this far, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to click on the video that's on your screen right now. Because if you want the latest Eagles news the moment it happens, this is the place to be. Go Eagles!